There we go. Okay. Well, again, thanks very much, everybody, for joining. We're going to spend the first sort of 10, 15 minutes going over what the actual NICE guidance means to us and the patient community, and a little bit more information about some of the questions that we've seen float through to us over the last five or 6 days. And we'll try and answer those as best we can at this point in time. So just to start off, the guidance explains, so just talking a little bit about the coverage. So that essentially means that the NICE guidance, although it talks about NHS England reimbursing treatment for burosumab in England, it also means that the NHS Wales will also adopt the same guidance, and that will also be available in Wales. And the same goes for Northern Ireland. And as some of you may already know, burosumab is already available to adult patients in Scotland. So that essentially means across the nation we'll have finally the same treatment available to children and adults across all four nations. So that's fantastic, and we couldn't be happier with that. Um, Moving on to who it affects. So as I was saying earlier, it affects all adults with XLH. So you know, in early discussions with NICE, without going into too much details, um, there was a lot of sort of emphasis on only giving burosumab to those that need it the most. And perhaps there may be some adults and some patients across the country that may not be able to receive treatment because they didn't meet certain criteria. And um, the brilliant news is that that criteria has actually been lifted and essentially means that anybody with a diagnosis of X-linked hypophosphatemia will be able to get access to burosumab. So that again is a huge win for us, and will make a big difference, we believe. In terms of as I said earlier, it will be available across the NHS. So NHS England and NHS Wales and the Northern Ireland will be reimbursing treatment for those patients. So there'll be no need to sort of seek private care or anything like that, or anybody should be exchanging any kind of finances with any organization because it will just come out naturally through your taxes. So there's nothing to worry about there. And again, fantastic news. Um, a little bit about how we as a patient organization fed in and how as our patient community also fed into that journey. As you all know, it was a very long journey. For us, this started at the very beginning in 2021, in January 2021, and where NICE essentially go through sort of a scoping and fact-finding session. They identify key stakeholders, they identify the patient groups, that's us there, and then also the expert clinicians. And they essentially use us to help them through that entire journey, and we feed in many steps in that process. So that was really key for us as patient groups to be able to um, amplify the voice with NICE and really make sure that they understood what it's like to live with XLH and make sure they understand the unmet need in the adult population. Just going a little bit forward, there's also economic advisors, so health economists that will feed into this. They typically they're formed of external advisory groups, so they tend to be universities and larger institutions outside of NICE. They also feed in, as well as there are NICE committees and committee meetings. And again, both patient experts, such as ourselves, and the clinicians and the health economists all feed into each of those committee meetings. So it was a very long journey. And as you know, earlier in the year, NICE initially gave a no to recommend burosumab to the adult population in England. And it wasn't until we gathered further evidence that NICE required to make a new assessment and a new decision from both the patients and the clinical experts that we were able to turn it around. NHS England were able to broker a new deal and thus recommending burosumab for the adult population. I hope you like my graphics this morning. I spent a lot of time on them. But hopefully it just explains a little bit more about the journey that we went on and how long it actually took and how everybody played a very key part in helping us get to where we are today. So everybody should be extremely happy with that. So a big thank you to everybody. I'm sure you're all brimming from smiling from ear to ear and very pleased with the outcome. Just a little bit more about when and how. In the guidance, you might have noticed, or some people might have seen something about like 90 days and 60 days. Well, essentially, what happens is once now that this final guidance has been published, clinicians up and down the country from the metabolic bone clinics will be able to start essentially prescribing burosumab to adult patients with XLH from around October. Um, it doesn't mean um, and sorry, what I should also say is that it's really important that if you're not already seeing a metabolic bone disease expert, then you can't go to your GP and just expect your GP to sort of start prescribing that treatment. It needs to be monitored by an expert clinician out of one of the main hospitals across the country. So we do have a list of hospitals and hospital contacts on our website where you can find expert clinicians. But if you still having difficulty with that, please reach out to us through our email address. Um, Obviously, if you're not already being seen by an expert clinician, you will need to speak to your GP first, and your GP will need to make that referral to that clinician, where they will essentially be able to, at least start on initial assessments. They may even talk about phosphate and calcium trial for a period of time as well. That's all perfectly normal. Um, um, I should also probably highlight that hospitals up and down the country have sort of different processes as well. So there are different pharmacies involved and formularies involved, and they will also have different lead times in terms of getting patients access to treatment. So please don't just feel like you can just call up the doctor right away and start sort of demanding the treatment. It doesn't really work like that. You have to sort of go through the process of at least meeting with them. They will take sort of baseline tests, I'm sure, and if they don't have a proper diagnosis in their books, they'll have to do a genetic test too. But just to sort of manage expectations, that's where we are with that. Um, what also initially happens after you've probably met the consultation several times, or if you're already known by the clinician and you already have the XLH and FEX diagnosis, um, they will essentially hopefully start you on treatment, and the initial treatment will be given in clinic by the doctor and nurse. And then what happens is um, your sorry, I'm getting some feedback here on my mic. Please feel free to mute yourselves if you are not already muted. Um, So once the training's happened, once the clinician's already done the initial injection in the hospital, they will then you're then entitled to 6 months worth of training from a nurse that will come out to your house and then help us guide you and train you in terms of administering the burosumab yourself. And that's also delivered via a chilled van, and that's where your medicine will be sent to you. And then obviously you keep it in the fridge because it needs to stay at a certain temperature, and then you use it at the specific times that you've been given from your clinician. So in adults, that's typically once every 4 weeks, but obviously go by the guide from your clinician, not us, because we're not here to give you medical advice. Um, Once the nurse has been with you for up to 6 months, you should then be able to administer yourself, and it looks a little bit like that. And then you'll be administering yourself either in your stomach or your arm or your legs. It doesn't really matter, but again, the nurse will be able to provide you guidance on that. Um, there's probably going to be quite a bit of questions on home care provisioning, and again, like a lot of that does depend on where you are in the country. But there tends to be two companies that will distribute the medicine via these chilled vans. But again, all of that will be communicated directly to you via your clinician at your hospital because they will have a specific method in doing that with you. Um, and now we're at the end. Sarah, have I missed anything, first of all?
Uh, did you mention the early access program and also teenagers?
Yes. So if you're already on the early access program, um, it should be, in theory, a little bit smoother, and there won't be a gap in treatment, um, so that you will be able to sort of transition without you even knowing from the early access program into regular treatment that's just being reimbursed by NHS England. So that it will all be about the prescription that your clinician is managing to be renewed, and that'll be it really. Again, some people receive larger quantities of burosumab through this chilled delivery process, like up to 3 months worth. Um, but sometimes it's just monthly. But again, not to worry about that. And the other question, sorry, what was the other one?
It's people who were on burosumab as children and have just
Oh
come off
yeah,
recently.
transitioning. Um, So for patients that are transitioning, again, it's about just making sure that if you're not already seeing your adult clinician, you need to go back and start to see your adult clinician again, just so that you can start going back into the process. I hope that that's not the case. But if you have any troubles in doing that, you could either email their secretary to see if you can get an appointment. But if that doesn't work, you will have to go back by the GP again and get a GP referral. But in theory, patients that are transitioning from childhood and into adult clinics, that transition should be smooth. Um, we are having a wider discussion with the main hospitals on Monday and all of the clinicians. So, and a lot of those are also pediatric clinicians as well. So that's good news because they're also going to be interested in how we and how they're going to be managing the transition of care. Um, if we find out any more information from the Monday's meeting, we'll be sort of publishing that together into a Q&A that hopefully we can share with everybody on our website. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I think at this point, I'm going to stop the recording